Welcome to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Today we're in Orange, California. Our guest this week has spent over a decade working with some of the biggest names in the industry before becoming one himself. From early on in his life, his parallel success in fitness and business has led him to accomplishments and accolades that set him up perfectly to achieve his entrepreneurial vision. Today he motivates people from all backgrounds to achieve their goals. In his fitness space, every day is game day. So whether you're new to fitness or one of the many pros he trains. So today we welcome to the Escape Your Limits podcast, the CEO, President of Longevity Sport and Fitness, Mr. Chris Long. Welcome to the podcast.
You. Appreciate it.
So where do you come up with the name longevity? What's that?
So I get the chills when I'm speaking about it because it actually happened. My best friend, his name's Ryan Kelly. He actually is a coach for the Brooklyn Nets right now. And I was training him as well as Jelani McCoy, some big names in professional basketball, up on the roof at Equinox, which is in the sports club. It's the old sports club of Orange County.
Right.
And I mean, those guys, they work, and I had to really, be creative with programming, and they've worked with some of the best trainers in the country. They have some of the best strength coaches in the NBA that they've worked with. Both have NBA careers, and they're kind of going on to finish their careers overseas.
Right.
Make some more money so that they can set some money aside. And so we went through the workout, and they were laughing about it, like, man, I feel dizzy. I feel like this high intensity interval training. What is this? CrossFit? What is this? And my best friend stands up and he's like, this is longevity. And I'm like, you know what? I had no vision of being an entrepreneur at that point. I just liked making a great paycheck, working for somebody, had a home, family and such. And it's funny because I said to myself, man, if I ever own my own business, I'm going to call it longevity. And my best friend, since we were 4 years old, Ryan Kelly, we made a promise to each other that we would both become professional athletes. And both of us did become professional athletes. We grew up next to each other, since we were 4 years old. And coming up with the name was quite easy. My name is Chris Long. Fitness and longevity is something that we always strive for. So it's kind of a two-part meaning. I think that this brand will touch a lot of people if it's given the opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Nice story. Nice name as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks.
So take us back a little bit. Tell us a bit about your background, how you got into the business. A bit about sport as well, and how you sort of came to where you are today.
Yeah. So I played basketball, baseball, football, track, everything and anything. I have to accredit all and any success that I've ever been, that I've ever had to my parents. I have amazing parents, and I have an amazing support system they've never allowed me to settle, right? And something that I was blessed with early on is my father was the vice president of the Seattle Mariners for a few years.
Right.
So growing up, I had a baseball bat in my hands at 2.5 years old, right? So, I did baseball, I played basketball, and something that the sport that I fell in love with was football.
Right. Just
because of the high energy and the impact, and the minute I hit somebody with my helmet, it was at the time it was the best feeling that I ever had felt. Right. I'm sixth grader, just laying kids out, and I was actually a quarterback, and grew up playing quarterback, and learned all those leadership skills from some great coaches, and coaches have always had a major influence in my life. And I think that my success in sports and in the classroom came from coaches holding me accountable.
Right.
And my coaches, I've had some amazing coaches, but a few to name specifically is Jim Hardigan at Santa Margarita High School, and Kevin McGarry, who is at University of San Diego. That was my high school coach and my college coach.
Right.
I was also able to play professionally in the Arena Football League. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Arena League.
I'm not, no.
It's basically a kind of a stepping stone to the NFL.
Right.
I was a little too small and a little too slow for the NFL, but my passion is football, and my passion has always been fitness and preparing to excel in those two capacities. So, long story short, sports brought me to fitness, but I also fell in love with the way I felt from a workout, and I really can't begin to, I credit any success that I've ever had and any ability to overcome any adversity to fitness, because I think when you actually, decide to make the decision to go and do the workout as opposed to regretting it and not doing it, it allows you to really own something, and you're able to overcome anything in your life through fitness.
Yeah. So when you was at school, did you always plan to come into this type of business, the fitness business, or were you not sure?
That's a great question. I was great. I was good in school as far as the classroom, because I'm such a perfectionist, and I didn't like competition. To me is huge, right? I mean, my mom and I used to race each other at 7 years old. And mind you, she's 72 years old now, and she still tries to race me. I beat her now, right? But the great thing about what sports, did for me is it allowed me to make sure that I made my grades in school. So in school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a doctor at one point, and then I'm like, man, that's just too much school, right? You can't play sports after 4 years of college football. No, I don't want to do that. So I think it was really my junior year of, it was my sophomore year of college. My strength coach, Steve Brown, who's very respected in the industry, who went to Brown University, and he played football there. He kind of mentored me and essentially taught me a lot about periodization and strength and conditioning, because I was oftentimes overtraining.
Right.
You hear that from a lot of people, but I was overtraining a lot, and he mentored me to kind of get me to slow down a little bit in order to speed up.
Right.
And I would say he had a lot to do with the career path that I chose. And I knew that I wanted to have a career that essentially was built on helping people, because I feel that when you help people, it's fulfilling to you as well. And that is the foundation of what my business is helping people. And what I found has helped me through anything has been fitness. The other thing has been my faith, but then there's more schooling if I want to be a pastor or whatever. But anyway, so I guess that's how.
And did the sort of training idea come before wanting to have a business? So did you want to train people? You mentioned your coach, and he had influence on the way you trained. What would you say came first for you? My training style is probably the most unique training style you'll ever see. Really?
And people will tell you that as well. Sometimes people are like, dude, where do you come up with this stuff?
Yeah.
I have a very, very wild imagination, and I'm very creative. This is an art to me, right? So when I see something, I see that treadmill, and over there I see gliders, right? So how am I going to combine that to make sure that I use all aspects of biomechanics, but also energy systems, to ensure that those two exercises are included in a movement pattern that needs to be push, pull, squat, hinge, and rotate, right? So to me, that's an art, and I'm passionate about it. And so when you get to like be creative and use your imagination, also within a framework, right? You don't want to just have people, Scott Perry and I used to laugh about, people jumping off boxes, holding holding something in their hand while they're closing their eyes. Sometimes the industry loses a little bit of its fundamentals through that, but at the end of the day, you're able to be creative and help somebody do something that they never thought they could do. So when you train somebody, they're putting their lives in your hands, and they're saying, I need you to keep me off medicine. I need you to keep me away from the doctor. I need you to keep me from being depressed. And I need you to get me through the session.
Right.
So, yes, there's times where I have to, be very creative, whether it's I've trained someone the 7,000th time because they've trained with me for 10 years, off and on, and I need to make sure they're motivated, and I need to be creative of how I can come up with a more complex movement pattern of lunges per se, right? But I would say a lot of what I've learned and a lot of what I've implemented comes from the fundamental framework of what Steve taught me,
right,
which was push, pull, squat, hinge, rotate, and don't
right,
complicate things.
Right.
Get people moving, right?
Okay.
So.
And is that so that framework you talk about, does that apply to your whole philosophy? So when you say you add this creativity, do you use that and then bring in tools within that sort of structure, or tell me about that framework that you refer to?
So when you say, so basically my methodology, longevity uses an acronym called SPACE, right, and it's speed, power, agility, strength, and endurance.
Right.
Basically, in any sport, at any time, you're going to need to use those particular energy systems, call them that, right? Agility is not necessarily an energy system, but you can't play tennis without being agile. At the same time, being a football player without being agile is going to be tough as well, right, or even a cross-country skier, right? So at Longevity, we feel that there's an athlete inside of all of us, so why not train like one? And so with that said, the fundamental movement patterns that we use here are push, pull, squat, hinge, and rotate, right? So, or anti-rotation. But essentially, in anything in life, that's really what we're doing, right? So if somebody needs to, lift something up from their cabinet to put it up on a shelf, they're doing a frontal plane, right, vertical press. And or let's say someone reaches down to grab laundry, they're doing a transverse plane lunge to right? So in anything in life, we're using those movement patterns of push, pull, squat, hinge, rotate. So, and then if you get out on the field of competition and in the field of life, and you try and do that running 150 miles an hour and running into people, like maybe football players or even basketball players, and any sport, right? Especially contact sports, and you haven't prepared for that, you're asking for an injury, right? And that's why, I'll never say a bad thing about somebody or their methodology. I try and go with science. So science always beats everything anyway, and there's research behind science. So have I made mistakes in training people, and have I hurt people? No, I haven't hurt people, because I usually take them to that ledge and pull them back before they're gonna fall off, right? But for me, training is about getting them to believe in themselves more when they leave the session than when they got here, because that's what I try and do in my own training sessions when I work with my trainer or when I'm on my own.
Yeah.
You know.
And is that philosophy something you've evolved over time?
Yes.
It is. Yeah.
Well, the great thing is I've been in the industry now since 2000 and I would say 2001.
Yeah.
I was such a bad trainer when I first started.
Why is that?
Because I progressed people too fast, and I even catch myself doing it now because I want people to succeed. And however, I have lost clients, and I'm not afraid to lose clients or members that are not willing to be coachable.
Right.
And one thing that I learned when I go back to, talking about coaches and in life, you have a coach because they're supposed to help you and hold you accountable, right? So, and they're supposed to make you better every day. So my game has to be strong. When these people come in here and when these members come in here, I train the dean at Chapman University, right? She comes in here and she's here at 4:15 a.m. If I'm 30 seconds late, she reminds me of it, right? And then, not to mention, she's the dean of exercise science. So if any of my programming's offbeat, we're probably gonna end up in some sort of argument,
yeah.
right? Or she's gonna challenge me. And that's what's great is that when you're challenged and you're around great people, which the industry has allowed me to be. I've worked for more fitness companies because I am an entrepreneur that was trying to be a corporate guy.
Right.
But I'm not a corporate guy. I'm an entrepreneur. So when, I guess when I was with other companies, I would, go to, let's say I went to 24-Hour Fitness. I think I came and left 24-Hour Fitness 3 or 4 times.
Right.
It's not because I didn't like 24-Hour Fitness. The problem was me, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I love to create. I love to evolve. But for me, I wouldn't have been able to do this without those experiences and without being around some really great people.
Yeah.
I could mention names time and time again, and we could go on and on for days. But there are some people that I respect so highly in this industry that come from, Equinox, 24-Hour Fitness, Velocity Sports Performance, some consulting that I did for Nike Spark training.
Right.
This industry is filled with some very talented people, and evolving is a necessity to get any better, right?
So tell us briefly about, so when you left school, you went to work as a personal trainer before you opened the business, is that right?
Yeah, I was, so my career path essentially, I was a professional athlete for a few years and then had some injuries and, some concussions, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit, about my experience through that. But I started at a little tiny gym in Irvine called Supreme Fitness, and Norm McCaulson, great guy, got me started in the industry. And I always felt that I really loved it there. I was in Irvine, and I was like, living. It was after I was done playing, and I was just trying to find myself. And then a friend of mine hired me at 24-Hour Fitness and basically fast-tracked me into management, and I grew from there. I was able to basically own all the sales records within the first 2 months of working there, just because I have a work ethic that nobody will be able to last with. And I also was very passionate about being competitive. And but I also wanted to stay humble, and so I stayed there for roughly 4 years, and then I was kind of headhunted by Velocity Sports Performance. So I was in a regional manager role there. And during these times, I would train people, basically for side money if I was able to, within my compensation plan, and I was allowed to do it. Because sometimes when you're in management, you're not allowed to train people, right? So what brought me into the industry was training. But then I grew my career into managerial, a managerial skill set, and it got further and further away from the training, and it became a little bit more about the numbers, right? So then I went from Velocity Sports Performance back to 24-Hour Fitness, and then I went to Equinox. I was there for a while. No, I was a general manager at 24-Hour Fitness. Then I went to Equinox, and I was basically the transitional manager that was running all of the takeovers from Sports Club of Orange County in LA. And I was a personal training director there, and it was really fun. Great experience. Still trained people because it was in my comp plan.
Right. Do you find that with trainers? Do you find that they love the training with people, and then they get progressed into management?
Well, I mean, if you're a quality person and you want to progress your life, you're gonna want to get into management, right?
How do you deal with that though? Like if that's what if you're passionate about one thing, but you're kind of getting, because I guess training's very sort of, you're working out there with people, you're not sitting behind a desk.
So to answer your question, that's a great question, by the way, because I dealt with it at 24-Hour Fitness all the time, right? Because I'm a doer, right? I don't just go explain something on how to, I don't just teach and say, go do it, right? I would usually try and show people, right? So that's kind of leadership in my opinion.
Right.
And I always got caught up with every client wanting to work with me. And then I just burnt the candle at both ends. And then, sometimes even my team would get mad at me because I wasn't maybe feeding them enough, right? And what you end up doing is kind of not really doing what you came into the industry for, right? So for me, it was being let go and saying, you know what, I'm gonna do what I'm meant to do. And that's what brought me to this industry, because, I'm fantastic at this and I know people can benefit from it. And I have a very unique style. So with that said, I knew that there's a lot of businesses out there and 90% of them fail. And I knew I wasn't gonna fail. I was gonna figure out whatever I needed to do in order to succeed. And from that, I created this brand from scratch. And the only client that I had was the dean at Chapman, who was basically a friend of mine, and built it from scratch. And it's been.
And what advice would you give to someone? Because I guess there must be lots of people in that situation you was. What advice would you give trainers that are that feel they're passionate about working with clients? Probably their natural progression is to go into management, but it's a big step to, as you said, 90% of businesses fail within the first couple of years or something like that. So the risks of doing that are quite high compared to working for a big company. What would your advice be for someone in that position where they're not quite sure where to go?
So one is I would hire a coach.
Right.
Maybe it's a trainer, or maybe it's a life coach, or maybe it's somebody that you can bounce ideas off. And the reason I say hire a coach is because, one, if you hire someone, even if you're paying them what you can afford, you'll find someone out there that will take, financial, something financially, right? Or maybe you'll work for somebody for it, right? Find a mentor and learn from that mentor, and also never focus on the past, because your life can change in the drop of a hat, and the only thing that matters is what happens next, right? If you failed, fail fast, because if you failed, that means you tried. I've failed. I'd like to think I've succeeded one more time, because I'm still standing, and so is this, right? I'd like to say I've succeeded more than I've failed, But the only reason I'm still standing here right now is because I have failed.
Right.
And
is that what you refer to when you say forget the past? Is you referring to failing?
yeah, because if somebody wants to go out, you're only going to regret what you don't do.
Right.
If you're in corporate America and you're miserable, right? Look, getting a $10,000 a month salary in a management position isn't a bad thing. So don't get me wrong, like that is a great life too. But if you feel like how I felt, the anxiety of not knowing your destination and being controlled by someone else's destination or thoughts of you, or wait a minute, he spent 5 minutes with me and he controls my future? No, right? And that's why I always felt like that. And that, it's been it's a release. I don't make $10,000 a month, salary, right? I mean, yeah, there might be revenue coming in, but we have expenses. And so with that said is, don't be afraid, because even if you fail, you're going to be resilient and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know?
And when you say you knew you as an entrepreneur, what?
I didn't know I was an entrepreneur then.
Right, okay.
Because I was doing my best at being a corporate guy.
Right.
But I almost feel like I wasn't authentic because some of the people that I might have been reporting to, I'm not saying I could do a better job by any means, because they got to their position by working hard, just like I get to my position by working hard.
Right.
But there's an adage that, something that you never sacrifice what your parents taught you, and something my parents taught me was to always respect everybody and respect people in authority, but never allow yourself to be disrespected.
Right.
And so learning that early on, there were times where I felt like some of the messages in corporate America were somewhat unauthentic, and I took it as disrespect. Maybe I shouldn't have, but being an entrepreneur allows me to pay myself what I'm crazy enough. I mean, because the only person that's crazy enough to pay, the only person that will pay you what you're worth is yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I create whatever I want to create is what I create, right? If I want to make $0 in a day, then I don't show up for work, but I'm probably going to be out of business soon, right? But creating something is not just about the financial gain. It's about leaving a legacy and impacting more people than just a company, right? When you build a company, like Escape Fitness, for example, right? When you grow older, obviously you're going to look back and say, I helped the world, right? As opposed to, I helped a company and a 401k paid me. In my opinion, it's just so much more fulfilling to impact a greater sense of the world in a sense. Yeah,
that makes sense. Do you remember what led the sort of moments before making that decision to leave corporate America? That sort of thing that you said, right, now I've made it. What led up to that moment?
Well, I think that fear always held me back, and I think fear was, and that's why I say don't be afraid to these people that are thinking about, they're sitting in the same seat as I was 10 years ago. Because I had people approach me all the time. Why are you doing this for someone else? You're phenomenal, right? And I thought to myself, well, I don't know. I was afraid, but now when I think about what it's doing for other people, and it started from nothing, I'm proud, you know, and pride isn't going to carry me to where I want to be, because pride will actually kill you in the end, right? But it helps me maintain my level of confidence when I wake up and I'm not guaranteed a paycheck, right? But to answer your question that you asked about, you know, when did I know it was time? I got let go,
right,
from the position that I had, for a company that I put a lot of effort and energy into. And I'm not mad at that company. That's the great part, is why would I be mad at a company that gave me a shot?
so
right?
so because of that moment you decided that you
I said, I have no other choice. This is a sign. It's a sign from God. It's a sign from the stars are aligning. And early on, I made every single bad decision a new business owner makes. Every single one. I mean, even from the color of the logo, right? Obviously I like my logo now, but early on, I think that I made some decisions that, thank God, they didn't cost me my business. But I've learned, and when you make mistakes and you fail fast, that's when you get great, and you learn. And those that actually learn from their mistakes and don't make them again, those are the people that end up doing really well in life. Yeah. And I'm not saying well in life from a standpoint of living in Dana Point on a cliff. No, that's not. What's important to me is how I impact people, and what my presence does for mankind, right? I want to be remembered that, man, not only did that guy give it all, but he made an impact in my life. Right?
Yeah.
So,
what was one of the biggest, I guess, sort of challenges that you came into that you didn't expect when you was going to start it, and how did you overcome that one?
Oh boy. I would say, the city of Orange. I'm just kidding. No, I would say just sometimes not everything is going to go as planned. And it's almost like you got to put your quarterback hat on and call audibles from time to time. Like, if this happens, you need to be like nimble on your feet and go, okay, we're going to go in this direction, right? And be okay with it, because not everything's going to go as planned, right? But when it doesn't go as planned, you have to maintain your composure, and you have to be true to what your vision is, right? And I would say, in my brain, it moves so fast, right? It's about a year ahead of being realistic. That's in my brain, right? And I would say a year and a half from where I actually should be. So I would say, like, I'm about 6 months behind of what I thought I would be from a realistic standpoint. So with that said, it's not always going to go your way, and you have to just be able to roll with the punches. And when something bad happens, you look back and you go, good. And the reason that you say good is because you're dealing with a challenge, and that's the whole point of life, is to overcome challenges.
Right.
So.
And what about, you left the job, and then financing this place, to getting a rent and buying equipment is not cheap. Even a few bits of equipment needs a lot.
Oh
needs
boy,
support.
you're telling me.
How did you how did you finance that?
It's not funny actually, because it was very life shattering. It actually happened. Even talking about it is sometimes difficult, but in 2013, I lost everything that was dear to me.
Really?
I mean, close to, we don't even need to discuss assets, but everything I'd ever worked for. I lost it through a a really, really tough divorce
Right.
and a custody battle, and I'm sure you can imagine. So with that said, that kind of led to some financial difficulties, just sorting all that out, right? And so everything I had left from anything that came from what was left over, plus I had a tax return from 2014. So when I opened in 2015, I essentially used whatever I had left, like every dime, and everything I had left, and the tax return I was getting, and then my girlfriend helped me a little bit as well with some of the build out, and that was great. And she is just an amazing human being, and for that. So, but getting back to the financing, yeah, I was like, wait, I owe you $8,000 just for first and last months, and I haven't made a dime yet? Oh, wow, okay. So, yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. So, one of the mistakes I made early on, and I'm more than happy to admit it, is I had some people working for me early on that it probably would have been better if I didn't have a payroll, right? So because I expected them to be as passionate about what I'm doing as I am about it, right? And in anything, it's not their business, so they shouldn't be as passionate, right? And I don't blame them, and that's okay. But I think that scaling it back and having it just be me, one, it allows me to go at my speed, which is damn fast, right? But it also allows me to grow at the speed I want and the speed I'm capable of. So long story short, as far as the financing is concerned, I also Ubered at times on Friday and Saturday nights when I didn't have clients to make sure that I would make ends meet.
Right.
I sold clothes at times when, the way that I built my business is I didn't just go and get 20 high ticket clients. I wanted to focus on volume, and so group training is essentially the volume play, right? You have a lot of people paying, whatever, it's a membership or classes and so on and so forth. So you have to gain a lot of people. So you have to have a lot of events, and you have to have people out there in the community speaking highly of you. And that was good because sales, you can't run a business without sales and marketing. So I have a lot of loyal members to thank because I wouldn't be standing without them.
Right.
And I will say that again. My members are everything. This isn't my gym. It's not. It's my business. It's my company. It's my company. It's not my gym.
Right.
It's the members' gym, and it's the client's gym. Right. And I oftentimes ask them, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? They want to see me succeed, which is great, right? And I love every single one of them. They might not think so because I crush them during workouts, right? But I love every single one of them. So the financing can be tough sometimes because anytime money gets involved, right? In anything, whether it's a relationship with, family or, girlfriend or business associate, I'm best working by myself.
Right. And is that what you're doing at the moment? So
you met Bob.
Yeah.
Coach Bob has, every once in a while, he'll come and help me organizationally. And sometimes when I have big groups of athletes, because he has like a wisdom effect to him, the athletes really are drawn to him. Yeah. Some of my pro guys think he's hilarious because he is. You get to know him, he's pretty funny. And so, yeah, I just work best alone. Yeah. Not that I can't work in a team, but people don't get my work ethic, man. Like, honestly, I think people either get mad at me that I got to work before them, or then they're like, it's just weird. And maybe that's just me, but I'm a tough man to manage. I mean, you can ask anyone that I've ever worked for, because I'm stubborn, but I'm also, if someone's working for me, I just have such high expectations, and I don't want to bruise relationships over having people work for me. I work for my members, and I think I exceed their expectations.
Yeah. How do you plan on scaling? You mentioned earlier, sort of before we started, about franchising and that. What's your view on how you'll scale your business beyond yourself?
So this first 2 years, 2.5 years, close to 3, has been literally like trial and error stuff, right? So finding the right pricing mix, finding the right, so I'm in Orange, right? And I can't charge what they charge in Newport Beach. I tried, just can't, right? So when I duplicate that, and let's say somebody wants to buy into the franchise, or they want to open their own longevity, and there's benefits to that, there's also risks of that. I feel like that, you have to have, in order to scale, you have to have a system.
Yeah.
So a system, I've spent the last 3 years failing things and finding out what doesn't work. So there is value to an investment in this, because look, I already tried that, dude. It's not gonna work, right? I tried for that for 3 months and it cost me X. So, but then there's stuff that I've really succeeded at. And then there's stuff that I'm like, I didn't even think would be a big deal, that the members or even the community are like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool, right? Or, I'm learning as I go, right? I oftentimes refer to myself as like a dumb meathead because I'm a football player, but I really do know where I want to take this, and I know what it's going to take in order to take it where it needs to be, because some of the people that have mentored me did it themselves, right? And I've also learned a lot over the past 3 years about people, and the way, something my parents always taught me growing up was just treat people how you want to be treated, and everything will take care of itself.
Yeah. So what do you think about, like, this is I guess a different concept from the gyms that you worked with, the 24-hour fitnesses. What's your views on where the industry's going now? What do you see over the next few years? Do you think they'll continue with the types of fitness clubs and these, fitting around it, or do you think, anything different will happen? What's your views on that?
Well, there's so many different types of fitness clubs, right? There's so many different types of fitness businesses, and there's so many different types of different spaces, right? I think that the big box gyms, it's not a fitness business anymore. It's a real estate game.
Right.
And that's it. They offer great opportunities for people that want to be in management. But if you notice, a lot of the managers that were great managers at 24 Hour Fitness or at whatever, other gyms, Golds, whatever, they're managers at Target now too, right? Like upper management, because 24 Hour Fitness has a great pathway to success, and it's all data driven, and you learn so much there. But that's management, right? The fitness industry is about fitness, and that's really kind of why I got into it. And anybody that knows me will speak about, when you think about Chris Long, you think about fitness. So, but all due respect to Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, and I have my own thoughts about programming and how they program, and they do some great stuff. They do some stuff that I would maybe the way it's interpreted might not be the best, but what he's done is put hands on more barbells than any other company could ever do, right? And that we're talking about more barbells than Les Mills did, right? We're talking about more barbells than 24 Hour Fitness or any of those people did, right? We're talking about the dude has changed the game, right? So I'm not trying to challenge him by saying, hey, I'm longevity, I'm one gym and I'm gonna, no. What I wanna do is take my flair to it and kind of, influence the community that way. If it grows to a decent size, great. But I essentially took everything that I liked out of every fitness business that I'd been a part of, along with stuff I've experienced on my own. Orange Theory, they have a phenomenal program. Yeah. Phenomenal, right? There's things that I would do different, and I do different here. And mine, I always try to refer back to science, and I always try to refer back to experience and how I'd want to feel. And then you got some of the hot yoga studios, and they're killing it. At the end of the day, the business is a multi-billion dollar industry, right? So one, you've benefited from it. I've benefited from it. Many others have benefited from it. It's not going anywhere, and hopefully you nor myself are going anywhere, right? And there's so many more people that need help. I mean, if you look at what our epidemics are, it's all related to not taking care of yourself. Yeah. I would say 90% of it, right? Yeah. I mean, there's some genetic stuff, and there's stuff that people are born certain ways. Can't control that. But things that we can control is our health and our fitness. And, the one thing that, where do I see the industry going? There was some stuff that, Obamacare launched that was really good. It's gotten away from it now, where there was provisions on, medical care potentially being, people going to fitness studios more and such. There was talks of that. I don't know if it's ever going to go, because at the end of the day, right, people are the ones that have to really move and make a change in order to fix the industry, right? Because even if we had all these beautiful gyms, if people don't go because they don't see the benefit in fitness, and that's what our job is to make sure that it's still, like, we spread the word, right? And that whole fitness gospel aspect, we have to truly continue to focus on helping people, right? So whether it's making a new modality of equipment based on research and development, right, then that's your role. Yeah. My role is to create and have ideas and test and implement and hopefully grow, God willing.
So just getting more people, encouraging more people to get involved, regardless of, I suppose, what the box is that they're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it too. Technology is killing the game right now, right? A lot of these apps, these Nike Plus apps, you can work out in the comfort of your own home. And now they have trainers where you're like live with the person. At the end of the day, there's another reason I need to be up on my game, right? The difference, the margin of me succeeding, right, and failing is my ability to make them feel different than when they do this at home and when they do this here. Yeah. And that's my margin. That's what drives the value of my business. Because why do they come to longevity when there's 18 businesses that are trying to do the same thing as me and call it something different, right? It's just about being, you might do this, but I do it better, right?
So, so just before we finish, I've got a couple of quick questions for you then. So, number one, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So I've already touched on it, but it was in high school. A coach, it was actually we had a co-defensive coordinators, Matt Rink and Tim Prukop, who were coaches, great coaches. They're well known in Orange County. And and they were trying to get through to us just some things after one of our first losses, or after, I'm sorry, actually we didn't really lose in much, but after our first game, we just weren't getting something, right? And what they honed in on was the only thing that matters is what happens next. And that, along with a code that I learned in high school, which was be prepared, play hard, maximum speed, and finish. And if you do all of that in your life, right? Be prepared, right? It's showing up on time and knowing what you're getting into. Be prepared, play hard. When you're doing whatever you're doing in life, you got to go hard at it, right? Do it at your maximal speed, not necessarily like a bull in a china closet, right? But live your life so you can get a lot accomplished, right? And be efficient.
Yeah.
And then finish what you start.
Yeah.
If you're going to start something, finish it.
Yeah, that's good advice, really. A lot of people start things but never complete them to the end.
And me too. I do that too, right? But if I constantly live by that code,
yeah.
And a high school football coach taught it to me, right? But I apply it to life.
Yeah.
And there's so much that's like parallel, right? But that code, along with the only thing that matters is what happens next, can help like mold your life, right? And I think that, I could step outside of this building and get hit by a car, right? And did I maximize my life? Was I prepared? Did I play hard? Did I go maximum speed, and did I finish, right? We never know what we're going to be gifted with or taken away from. So the only thing that matters is what happens next. Not 6 years from now, because you can't control that. Not 2 years from ago, because you can't control that. Not 5 seconds ago, you can't control that. What is happening now and what happens next is what you can control.
Yeah, good advice. What was your last workout?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I did. So I've been doing a lot of German volume training like recently. So yesterday, along with trying to burn as many calories as possible on in a short amount of time. So I use the Jacob's ladder. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It's a great piece of
What's
equipment.
German volume training?
It's basically 10 sets of 10 on the minute for every minute at roughly 65% of your max. Doesn't sound all that bad. Well, 10 sets of 10 on the minute for every minute is rough, but when you put 65% of your max, if let's say I'm squatting 425, right, at 39 years old, I'm probably going to be doing roughly 265, 275 for 10 sets of 10, right? So I'm burning a ton of calories, right? I'm also expending a lot of energy. Yeah. And so the last workout that I did was, obviously I went through an active dynamic warm up. I foam rolled. I kind of did some mobility work, some soft tissue work, and then my entire workout included simply 10 sets. 10 sets of 10 reps on the minute for 10 minutes. And then after that, I did the Jacob's ladder to burn. I did intervals of a minute on, a minute off until I burnt 650 calories.
Right.
So that took me roughly 27 minutes, right? But I was going like all out on that Jacob's ladder. So
that sounds pretty intense.
Yeah.
Do you read or listen to any podcasts or books? And if so, what is it you're reading at the moment?
Well, I listen to yours, so that's great. Now since since Kevin contacted me and got me involved in this, I've watched yours and listened to yours, and I think it's very. I like what you guys are doing. I like what you're doing in the industry, and I as I discussed, I really like your equipment and the quality of it. And as far as books are concerned, I'm an audio learner, right? So I was that guy in college that would walk in with a pencil in his ear and borrow a piece of paper from the girl next to me, take notes, and then usually throw the notes away on the way out of the building. And then from what I listened to, I would usually do really well in the tests. So I listened to a lot of books on tape, or not tape now.
Yeah, showing your age.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So, but actually, I'm actually getting back involved with one of the first leadership books that I've read, and that's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And only because a friend of mine, asked me to read it. We became friends over a long period of time, but he asked me to read it like really early on in my career, and I did, and I used a lot of those tools that I learned from that particular book. And sometimes I like to circle back and actually reread or re-listen to a leadership book, because in all this like craziness and the business and how things change and how as much as we evolve, at the end of the day, as much as things change, at the end of the day, most of them stay the same, right? So if I'm constantly kind of relearning things that and getting good at what really got you great to begin with, I think that's not overcomplicating things and just simplifying, right? Let's face it, how long has the pick and roll been out, right? The pick and roll in basketball is never going away, right? The triangle offense in basketball is never going away unless they make some crazy rule. I'm actually, it's funny because I actually just started listening to it again on my way to work here today. So it's funny you asked that question.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. A few of these interviews we've had, Think and Grow Rich and How to Win Friends and Influence People, they're still pretty consistent across a lot of people.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to have, so that Think and Grow Rich is a great book as well. There's so many books out there that are great leadership books, and I'm actually in the process of writing a book right now as we speak, and it's more of a inspiring book about my journey and how I used fitness to beat depression, and how I've used it as my medicine, and how I like to help other people that way, right? So.
And when's that coming out?
So I'm working with an editor in a publishing company because I want to do this right, and obviously I don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, right? Meaning spend money on something that isn't going to necessarily make me money now.
Right.
So there's costs to having the editor, and there's costs to getting it published. So I'm probably, I would say, anywhere between 20 and 40 hours away from being completely finished.
Right.
But it's just my story, and it's how I've lost everything and built it back from being depressed and actually being 100 pounds heavier than I am right now, and how I've used fitness to help I guess rebuild my life from after losing it all, and how I've used the ability to have mental fortitude that a lot of people have instilled in me early on in life, that has come to fruition now, that I look back and say, man, these people have affected my life, and I want to leave something here on earth that's value. And I also think that my story, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I went through a very, very difficult time. I had shock treatments to my brain 14 treatments. I tried everything. I tried every medicine known to man. I gained 100 pounds from medicine I was trying, right? That stuff's not good for you. What's good for you is fitness. And that's what saved my life. And that's what pulled me out of depression.
Right.
And that's what got me back to who I was, a thriving athlete, someone who's meant to move. And so I feel like my story will inspire some people, and it might save some lives. I mean, you look at someone like, there's some depression out there right now, and if the people that can't do something don't do something, because I know I can do something, I know I can impact people and help them through this story that I dealt with it, right? I was depressed when Rick Warren, the pastor at Saddleback Church, when his son committed suicide, I was in the same space as that, right? And I'm the healthiest I've been, and I credit a lot to the business, but I'm the healthiest I've been because of fitness.
Yeah. So before the last question and relating to your book, where can people go to find out about you and keep an eye on when this book is going to come out and get
So I'm on social media. I have it's kind of funny. People make fun of me because I'm not a millennial at all, and I do my best with social media, but like I just started learning how to use hashtags, and like I'm getting all these new friends or followers that are like, I really like your stuff, and then there's some people that like try and sell me stuff because they're watching my page now. Anyway, long story short is I'm on Instagram, longevity_fitness.
Okay.
And then I have a Facebook page that is Longevity Fitness. I believe it's Longevity 1020 or something like that.
Okay.
And then obviously I'm personally on Facebook and Instagram as Chris.long1 on Instagram, and then on Facebook it's just Chris Long from Orange County, California.
Right.
And you'll know it's me. I don't really live a real private life. I kind of put everything out there, which sometimes it can be good, and then sometimes it's not so good. But it's really, I'm just real. Yeah. I don't have anything to hide, so I don't hide it, right? My profile isn't private because if you want to know something about me, just ask. So I'm on social media, and then I have a website for longevity, which is CP Longevity, Core, Power, Longevity. Okay. There's no association of core and power in my business, but unfortunately Longevity Fitness was taken. And it was a very expensive domain name at the time. So so it's cplongevity.com. And then from time to time, I'll host some fitness events here at Longevity, which are somewhat, they're kind of like competitions, not like weightlifting competitions or anything, but just stuff to help the community, whether it's a charity or whether it's helping someone in need to raise financial resources and stuff. So. Okay.
Great, excellent. So last question then. Escape Your Limits is about overcoming what you've been told to believe is impossible and then making it possible. So what would be probably your most memorable example of where you've escaped your own limits?
Every single, I'm 5'10", and at the time, I wasn't, although I consider myself someone who's an athlete, God's gifts are, He gave me some gifts, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I was granted all that, the people that continued playing as long as I did. as they were granted. And there's some people that didn't even play as long as I did that had greater gifts because they made bad decisions. But I was always doubted, right? So I was always, maybe someone would be like, oh, this is your last year of this is the last time you're ever going to do this, right? Whether it's playing sports or whether it's essentially, I escaped my limits when I was able to say I've been paid to play a sport. And the reason I went as long as I did, and I probably would have continued had it not been for some injuries and had it not been for just some family circumstances that I needed to carry my responsibilities of. You know, being married early on in life is something that I needed to take care of, and taking care of a family was something that I needed to do. But being paid to play a sport is something that I'm very proud of, and it has nothing to do with anything more than will. And that's it. It's not, I was able to win. And any coach would agree with me. Any coach that has coached me in the past or has coached me in the past would tell you if he got to become a professional athlete, it was out of pure willpower and not necessarily athletic gifts, right? Yes, I can move well, and but there's so many that are better than me. So many athletes are better than me by the grace of God. Mine was out of willpower, and oftentimes I would be too stubborn and, you know, try to do more than I was capable of. But I escaped my limits when I was able to earn a paycheck to play a sport.
Yeah. I guess being in control of that, as opposed to, as you said, being given genetics to do it.
Yeah.
You had to work at it. So.
I'm not too genetically gifted. So.
Excellent. Well, Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Appreciate your time.
It.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.